¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?
Welcome back to CHIRLA TV. I'm joined by Representative Jimmy Gomez, as well as Jessica Huerta. My name is Pedro Trujillo. Thank you all for joining us. We're talking about a very important topic, which is this public charge ruling, as well as these other rules that the administration has put on folks.
Yeah, unfortunately, on January 27, 2020, the Supreme Court authorized this administration to implement the public charge expansion. So what that means is that people who are currently seeking to get green card or legal permanent resident in the country, and only if they're going to do adjustment of status to this process, they're going to be impacted by this new rule. So this rule is going to be effective on February 24, 2020. So we have to see what are going to be the repercussions after the implementation.
And who does this affect primarily, Congressman?
Well, first, we want to make it very clear that it's not retroactive, so it's not impacting anybody from before that adjusted their status before February 24th, 2020. Right. It moves. It's only for people adjusting it after that date. One of the things we want to make clear, and this is why I brought some notes so I don't want to make a mistake, is that it doesn't apply to naturalized citizens, green card holders, legal permanent residents, green card renewals, DACA renewals, and T or U visa applications. So I know there's a lot of fear out there, but we want to make sure that people know that it doesn't apply to those folks, and it only applies to people moving forward after this date. So it's, in essence, what I believe that this administration is trying to do is one, instead of just a border wall, a physical wall, they're trying to create another virtual wall that will make it more difficult for immigrants who are trying to just navigate the immigration system, which is very confusing by itself, as is with any changes, and then add to fear to the people that are currently here, even if they have a right to these benefits or not. So it's, I think it's more optics. I think, but people need to know if it applies to them, why it applies, and who it doesn't apply to, not to assume that it applies to all immigrants.
Right, and I think one of the main population that this targets is our low-income, working-class families out there. There was a study by the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs and CIPC, California Immigrant Policy Center, that reported that people were already, ahead of time, ahead of the announcement, were already dropping their services, like the access to their services and benefits. And really, it's like most of these people that are the most vulnerable rely on these benefits, right? And they're the most impacted with this decision as it is.
Yeah, I think it's important that this is the chilling effect that this administration has been causing, the fear, the confusion. So we want to make sure that despite the fact that it was implemented or is going to be implemented, there is some distinction of who's going to be applied to this rule. Like he mentioned, the ones that are exempt to the rule, but also we have to be mention like applications filed before February 24, 2020 are not subject to the rule. Right. Benefits received before February 24, 2020 will not be considered as public charge. Tests and the final rule only will apply to petitions postmarked on or after February 24, 2020. So there is a certain population that might be impacted, and just remind them, that rule and the public charge only applies to those who are in the adjustment status, meaning that they're going to be adjusting the status in the country, so nothing else. Like if people are going to be adjusting the status abroad, so that rule doesn't apply to them. However, there are other rules that they should take into account. So that is at this point urgent to consult with an attorney to make sure what applies and what, just to take the precautions before, it's too late,
And we'll go a little bit more into detail in a few minutes, but Congressman, you've been a champion for immigrant rights. You've been a champion of working class families for many years now. What was your initial reaction when you heard this in the Supreme Court? If you could tell us briefly, what was it like in the Hill?
Well, I was disappointed. I think a lot of members of immigrant descent are disappointed in the ruling. But we also have grown a little accustomed to the fact that the Supreme Court has ruled against us on a variety of issues, everything from the Muslim ban to this issue. And we hope that it doesn't they don't rule against DACA recipients moving forward. But at the same time, there's resolve on the Hill to use the power of the purse. That's what we can control to limit how funds are used to implement this rule and who it actually applies to. That is still being worked out because we wanted to see what the rule ended up being. But the appropriators, people who appropriate money to the federal agencies to carry out executive orders and pieces of legislation, are trying to figure out how to limit the resources to make sure that this law isn't, or this public charge rule doesn't impact a wide swath of people.
And we'll get back to that after these messages. We're going to discuss what is this invisible wall that the Trump administration is creating.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?
Welcome back to CHIRLA TV as we're joined with Representative Jimmy Gomez as well as Jessica Huerta from CHIRLA. We are discussing this new change around public charge. As you all may have heard, there's been changes in the rulings. And so we wanted to talk about now as to those that are impacted. Jessica, tell us, people that have been calling CHIRLA, what have they been saying regarding this new rule?
Yeah, it's interesting that, after the ruling, a lot of people that feel fear that they might affect in the long run. Sometimes, ironically, it doesn't apply to them. That's what I mentioned with the chilling effect. So people, in this case, I wanted to make clear that applicants benefits who are used by applicant children and family members will not count in their personal in the person public test. So that means, for example, if undocumented parent is receiving some sort of benefits because of the child is U.S. citizen, it won't apply to his public charge test. So, and that is a lot of confusion it generates because most people, especially in California, we have a high percentage of mixed status family. So, that percentage is almost, 4.7 million of Californians at least have one family member who is undocumented. Okay. So it's really a lot of population, especially those children who might be under the age of 18, might have a family member who is undocumented. So that is a lot of confusion. But we want to make clear that any family member who receiving a benefit through a U.S. citizen, it won't apply to their person public charge.
Y quiero hacer ese mensaje muy claro, recalcar de que solamente porque pasó este cambio de la carga pública que se llama, de que no quiere decir que uno tiene que dejar ir sus beneficios, ¿verdad? Que tienen que ir a verificar, hablar con una organización comunitaria o tal vez con su oficina de su congresista para ver dónde estoy, ¿no? Dónde estoy con este tema.
Sí, yo creo que, y vamos a hablar en español porque la gente que nos llama corre queriendo dejar los beneficios o sin informarse que realmente no le aplica a la persona. Entonces queremos enfatizar que primero asegurarse con un abogado de inmigración, aquí asegurarnos que se aplica para nosotros y tener la información correcta antes de tomar alguna decisión.
Congressman, I know there was over 200,000 comments that were made by the public, by the American public, regarding public charge, right, and how it's a bad idea. How do we get to the place we're at today?
Well, it all started, I believe, with what President coming down an escalator and trying to demonize immigrants. Maybe I shouldn't get as that political, but that's what it started, and what they're trying to spread a false narrative that immigrants are coming here just for the benefits. And it's something that I've heard from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle in committee. So it's a myth that has been created that we have to dismantle, because we know that immigrants are less likely to use public resources than native-born whites. So it's a myth that's been created, and what they're trying to do is create this fear, right? Everything this administration has been doing from the very get-go is to create confusion, to create fear, to try to limit the ability of immigrants to come to this country as a deterrent. Yet it's at the same time, even like recently the chief of staff, the acting chief of staff to the president, Nick Mulvaney, he ended up saying that they need more workers in this country to keep the economy going. So this is just, I believe, a political ploy to continue to get this president reelected. It does have real ramifications, because fear can cause people not to drop their benefits that they deserve. If their child is born here, they have every right to all the benefits that they deserve, and also the immigrants who are here and are not impacted by the public charge rule. So they're going after, I think, the most vulnerable in the communities, the lowest income, the people that are working hard just to make a political message.
And this fear and confusion has worked, right? And it has worked. We've already seen various reports that people, even legal permanent residents, are dropping their benefits. Many of these people rely on these benefits to allow their family to live and to survive, right? And now they're even in more limbo because of this administration that's creating chaos and confusion. And we're gonna talk about that in just a second as to who is to blame, what is this invisible wall, what are other things that this administration has been doing targeting immigrants. We'll be back after these short messages.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?
Welcome back to CHIRLA TV. We're discussing a very important matter today, which is public charge. And we were just been mentioning this invisible wall, and what do we mean by that, Congressmember?
What we mean is that this administration is not just trying to put up a physical barrier, but they're trying to create a situation that acts as a deterrent for any migrant trying to come into this country. You know, it started off with the Muslim ban when he first got in and issued this executive order saying if you're from certain countries and they're Muslim countries, you're not allowed to even apply for asylum or seek to come into this country. There's also times where he created, at the border, he limited the number of places that you can seek asylum. So I went down, I spent the night on the border with Maria Meza and her family. She was tear gassed trying to come in. They would always say, oh, you have to go to this port of entry or that port of entry, trying to create this confusion of what their rights are, even though immigrants and asylum seekers have a legal right under the U.S. law, but also international law, to apply for asylum, present themselves, apply for asylum. It's completely legal. It doesn't mean they're guaranteed asylum, but they have a right to do it. Additionally, they tried to put in a question on the census.
Which failed, but they tried to.
Yeah, tried to. And that is in order to suppress the voices of the immigrant communities, the Latino communities, the Asian communities, to not fill out the census. So this virtual wall, this invisible wall, is meant to keep people out, even without really passing any real legislation or creating the physical barrier. But it has the same impact. People don't want to come, they can't come, or they get so confused that they give up and leave.
Well, it depends, because if you're of upper class, European ancestry, then you'll probably be welcomed with open arms by the Trump administration, right?
True.
And so what do you have to say about this, Jessica? Like, I know that the Trump administration has been doing many changes, and your work is directly impacted. You as a mom also, you've seen some of these things play out. What are some of your take?
Yeah, like, you know, I heard people say like the anti-poor policy, because they just targeting low-income communities, community of color. So you can feel that it's to people of color like me, you know, like I feel directed, impacted. So it's not like just because I have a job doesn't mean that my people, when I go and present, people are fearful. Moms are, you know, they don't want to even ask for the benefits a week, you know, some nutritional supplemental support that they have for their children. So even that they feel like they don't deserve. And just to make it clear, immigrants in this country, we pay contributions, we pay taxes, we
purchase goods.
We purchase good. If you buy a car, if you buy any type of good, that already contributing to the country. So it's really making, you know, for me at least, it's kind of like hard to keep that community engaged and strong because they feel demoralized, you know, once and again, like another attack. And like, how do we stamp that again and keep fighting? So I feel like it's a constant attack, and we just keep, you know, it's like when there is a fight, a box fight, they win, and then like, you just kind of like come back. But at this point, we have to come back strong and informed.
And also, just to add a single point, it's not just undocumented migration. It's also people who are legal migrants or people who are here. They're trying to put up barriers for them to even become from, say, a legal permanent resident to a citizen, by increasing the fees, your application fees. So it's like, you think that they would want people to become citizens, to be more invested in the country, not less.
Right.
But they're even putting up barriers for people to do that. So it's not just any kind of a migration. I mean, it's not just illegal migration, but it's all migration. They don't want any more migrants coming to this country, and that's what is a shame, because it goes away from our history.
That's right. And por eso en CHIRLA decimos que solo con organización hay solución, and that's the only way we're going to get out of this mess, is getting organized, being together as a community. Otherwise, we can land in this space where we feel hopeless, right? Feel hopeless, and with hopelessness also comes fear and apathy, and we don't want that, because we know that change comes only through action and through getting organized. Stay tuned. We're going to continue chatting here with the Congressman Jimmy Gomez as well as Jessica Huerta. We'll be right back.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?
As we mentioned before in the other shows, is that we weren't sure what was going to happen, what was going to be announced in this public charge. It was only a proposal, right? And this year, on January 27th, we finally heard an announcement from the Supreme Court allowing the Trump administration to roll out this whole thing known as public charge. We want to learn a little bit about what hope is out there, what resources are out there. Congressman, what can folks expect, folks from your district expect, what information can they get when they reach out to your office?
First, I want everyone to know that not to just take the word of their friends and neighbors. You know, sometimes in our community they spread gossip, and it spreads, and it's often wrong, and by the time, it might be correct when it starts, right, but as it goes down the telephone line, it completely changes. So that if they have any questions, they should reach out to my office, and we handle all sorts of issues for people who are undocumented and documented, citizens or not. We handle all issues. So they should reach out to our office. We have caseworkers who speak Spanish fluently, can help them with any particular issue. And to say if something's outside the realm of what my office can do, we have good partners like CHIRLA and Carecen and other groups that are doing great work that we can put them in touch with.
That's right. Y nomás para traducir a los demás, los televidentes que hablan español, la oficina del congresista está a su disposición, están listos, ellos tienen trabajadores ahí que les pueden ayudar si tienen preguntas sobre la carga pública. Solo hay que contactar, y si ellos no le pueden ayudar, los pueden conectar con otras organizaciones comunitarias como CHIRLA o Carecen. Jessica, ¿qué puede ofrecer CHIRLA?
Sí, ahorita estamos dando información, talleres educativos a la comunidad para asegurarnos que tengan la información necesaria. Igualmente, no regar el miedo, ¿verdad? Hay que asegurarnos que esté informada, que esté educada y tomar una decisión correcta. Entonces nos puede llamar a nuestra línea de ayuda en CHIRLA. Entonces va a aparecer en su pantalla y ahí puede conectarnos y saber qué recursos están disponibles. Ahorita es importante simplemente la información. Obviamente, si ya requiere de asesoría legal, es conectarla con los días de consulta de nuestra organización o igual manera referir a los otros abogados que les den la información adecuada.
Congresista, what would you like to see, let's just say, post-election? What would you like to move forward instead of the pathway that we have right now?
Oh, after November, if everything goes well, first we got to make sure that we pass, the DREAM Act and the American Promise Act to help the people who are like the DACA recipients and the TPS holders who are kind of in limbo.
That's right.
And then we have to start dismantling immediately a lot of the executive orders issued by this president. And so I think if we can, government matters. Who's running it matters. And right now we have a president who's campaigned on trying to prevent immigrants coming. He has an advisor in Stephen Miller who has come up with a lot of these proposals, and they often change depending on if they're considered unconstitutional or not. But moving forward, I want to kind of get back to the roots of this country, that it is a country of immigrants, and that we make it stronger, and that we are its future. So that's what I hope we get back to.
You happen to be my representative, so I just want to thank you, publicly thank you for your work and your fight that you're doing in the Hill for us and our communities. I feel like you are taking care of our families, right? That you're looking out for our families, so I really appreciate that. I want to let you know that. And also let folks know that we're here with you. We're fighting together, right? And we're struggling together. We will hold accountable all those people, institutions that have allowed, right, the destruction of people's lives for political point and political gains oftentimes. And so, CHIRLA TV está con ustedes. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Nos vemos el próximo show. Gracias.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?